Welcome, friend, in the Lokayata conversation. We have a very, very special guest today from South Africa, Constance Galeo Mogale. Am I right? Constance Galeo.
Yeah, Constance Galeo Mogale. Yes, that's me.
Constance Galeo Mogale is a land right activist, a scholar, and working with land access movement of South Africa, LAMOSA. She has done a tremendous work on the issue of land redistribution, and she is with Alliance for Rural Democracy in Africa. So today we are going to speak with her a lot of issues related to land distribution, to democracy, to social justice, to identity and gender issues. So welcome, Connie. Very happy.
Thank you for having me, Vidya.
Yeah, so how is the COVID situation in your country and how has it impacted the most marginalized people?
Yeah, so just to correct you, Vidya, I know you know me when I was still the director of the Land Access Movement of South Africa, a movement that I helped to establish and I'm very proud of. But today I'm working for the Alliance for Rural Democracy as the national coordinator.
Yeah.
So LAMOSA is still very much part of the alliance as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to correct so that my constituency must not.
You know, you worked with it, LAMOSA, the past.
Yes, it's not the past. I'm still presently there.
Yeah.
But not as the director anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the situation with COVID-19 in South Africa has affected many groups differently. So you will know that South Africa is a very unequal country in terms of resources. Now, the people who are experiencing this at a very, very, best is the marginalized. And it is the people who are living in the periphery. It is the people with no infrastructure in terms of road, health facilities, educational facilities, any access to resources, poor infrastructure, poor governance, and people who are placed under administration of poor people themselves. Like if you say no, rural people, traditional leaders will deal with them. We know that traditional leaders are old people who are not necessarily informed. They might be educated, but they also have no resources because by virtue of the location where they live. So it is, so that's the situation. The health facilities we see, well, fortunately or unfortunately, is that this pandemic has hit urban areas mostly, has hit well-developed areas more than the rural areas. Why? Because of the freedom of movement and movement of these people. They are a global community.
Yeah.
Therefore, they are most likely to be vulnerable to this pandemic. The health centers, which are private hospitals, and in Gauteng, Western Cape, and Durban, all the city centers are so overwhelmed with these COVID cases. They cannot handle it. And now it is overflowing to the public facilities, which are meant for the poor. So, that is the most fortunate part of it. But I cannot say it's most fortunate because you see, coronavirus is a invisible enemy. Nobody knows how it moves, when it's going to hit. But the statistics are showing that urban centers are mostly hit. But now when you come to social systems, we see yesterday the president was announcing that public schools must be closed.
Okay.
Private schools he doesn't mention. And independent schools are not even mentioned by the president, and they are even more vulnerable because of their being independent from government. So you see the clear cracks of inequality in terms of access resources, the privilege, and everything. And I don't know, because we said we are equal before the law. The Constitution of South Africa is guaranteeing equality before the law. What is it that civil society is going to do in terms of making sure that, I mean, the president should have said schools are closed, everyone, not that because private sector is ready because of them being better organized, giving access to
Absolutely.
and the parents being able to pay. So that's the situation in South Africa. Yeah.
So, how are the poor coping? Like those who may be in informal sector worker who might have lost their work or job. Is there the hunger situation in your country right now?
There is hunger situation. There's a cry out. It is so overwhelming for me to even start to mention. I work with my Afro colleague, so the Atlantic Fellows in Racial Inequality, Dora Marema, who has been my peer in the land sector for my days when I'm still a learner. So we try to raise money for food parcels and COVID relief and how we do it. And she chose to do the urban areas, and I chose the rural areas because I work there, and those are my constituencies. And because of that program of permaculture, food sovereignty, agroecology, it is so, I don't want to mention this in public, but I found it very easy to distribute food in the rural areas. There was order, there was no desperation in the eyes of the people. Unlike in the urban cities where it is chaos because people are running for food. You need to deploy soldiers and you need to deploy all forces for you to keep order and make sure that every house gets some parcel. But in rural areas, we just made an announcement. We're gonna start distributing parcels, and we will drop it in your house. You understand? We dropped it in the house, and people were like, organized. They were waiting for their parcels in their houses. And because villages they don't have, like, they are not overpopulated. They've got 300 households to 500 households. So we were distributing about 6,500 parcels. So you will know that, okay, if I'm gonna do it so we did it in 25 villages. So other villages are less than 100 households, other villages are 300 households. That is the most. So the only area where we found problems is developed areas like Nkangala around Mpumalanga, because of overpopulation. It's urbanization coming to there. So it's like a urban rural setup. So that is where we found problems. But otherwise, it was better. I think it was simple for me. I felt pity for my fellow Dora, who was doing, like, even in my neighborhood here, my house is surrounded by informal settlements. She was doing. It was terrible when people were running for food like that. And well, in my area, in Mpumalanga, we saw that government is not organized. Government was asking for food parcels, and what we did, we did a mapping of where the food was distributed before we came. And we found that government, where it distributed food, is 10 parcels. How do you distribute 10 parcels in a location of about 500 households? It was like, and we were telling, and they went, and then even the MEC of the province had to call me. I think I had calls from about 8 officials wanting me to hand over the parcels to them. And I'm saying, I said to them, I'm also accountable to people who donated this food. And I have to see that where the food went. I can't claim I gave social development food. So, and then they said, how are you going to distribute the food? I said, I'm going to put it in each and every household, because the area I'm working in, the rural areas are the most forgotten. Firstly, we said our distributors need to be equipped with data, PPEs, and protective clothing, everything, sanitizers, and transport as well, airtime and transport, because they have to take a photo of the area where they are, and they also need to be mobile. So we said we don't know how to get the PPEs to them on time. We said, okay, let the local hospitals handle the sanitizing and whatever. They didn't have. Our rural hospitals don't have protective clothing. They don't have sanitizers. They don't have anything. It's making me so emotional that health workers who are frontliners are having to use as if it's a normal situation. So that is the challenges that I saw. In the rural areas, there's no water. When we expect people to wash their hands and with soap and water, there's no water. In the rural areas, people have to travel a long distance to fetch wood for fire. When people are expecting them to be locked down for COVID-19. But with God's grace, people are moving like that. So it is terrible because people are locked down. There's a rife of theft, livestock theft. People's gardens are not protected. But what I was impressed about was when the food parcel from government was very minimal, but people around there were subsidizing it with their locally produced avocados. You understand? And I said, this is exactly what I meant when I said food sovereignty and food security, because you cannot have a truck traveling from Johannesburg to 600 more than 600 kilometers to the village. You know what that truck did? They delivered one village. They were supposed to deliver 5 villages per municipalities. So they went one village and they said, no, our truck cannot go. We cannot work. We cannot go on these roads. We cannot. So they didn't want to go in because they were afraid of their safety, because it was also rainy days. So roads were like, there's no roads. Another thing. So without roads means there's no access, limited access. A truck with, the tire of the truck, how big it is. They were afraid to go inside. And then we had to source local transports again to go and make sure that they take their village parcels and make sure that they can give us a list of who they gave the food to. It is terrible. Logistics are terrible in the rural areas. So those were the things that I was running around with. So, but I was so impressed about the response of the people and the order. And this is why I'm saying we could have sourced locally than getting a truck from Johannesburg to go and deliver. And a village, from one village to another village, it's about 40 kilos distance. So it is not easy to work there. You must be committed and you must love your work to be able to work there.
Yeah, also it's important, like when we have to give food, if we are worried about people, also people should have food as per their taste, as per their cultural habits. So if the food comes from so far away place, where we have been raising this issue when this question of hunger came in India, and some organization wanted from America to send the soybean to this country. So I said, now, if we want to go to the people in our hunger areas, we don't want to invite the breads and the soya bean from America. We want to locally produce food, and which people can love and eat, not impose upon them that we are giving it to you and eat everything that we have. So food is a culture. Food is a culture. So obviously we have to.
A culture. Food is a culture, and food is a it's a mood.
Yes.
It's a mood.
Absolutely.
It goes. It's our happiness. It's where we derive joy from. Now, when you are in a territory of certain culture, you must know what they eat, how they survive.
Yes.
Our food is different. when
Yes.
I'm in India, they don't eat meat. I
Yeah.
should just go in solidarity
Yeah.
with them. I
Absolutely.
shouldn't just come and say, now I'm eating this and this is what I want. Where will I get it? So, I mean, we also have, when we do this redistribution, we have to respect people's culture and people's
Yeah. Yeah.
taste buds.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If
That
they
I
eat
agree.
green, they
Yeah.
must get, yeah.
So your work and during the COVID, actually, I feel that it reveals two aspects. An often ignored fact about the urban poverty. I think urban poverty is much more rigorous, much more make people more helpless than the rural people. Rural, they suffer, they go. But in urban
Hmm.
area, the numbers are higher and the space is little. So you suffer, you squeeze. So that maybe for the even the policy planners, they have to think about this issue because
Hmm.
urban poverty has often been neglected by the policy makers and policy planners.
So, that is so true, the fact that you are making. The cause of overpopulation in the urban centers, it is a structural problem which began years ago when our forefathers had to migrate from home to the mines because of the tax laws that was imposed on them, to make sure that they give up on land and they see land as not as not productive, or they see agriculture as not productive to mining. So even the use of traditional leaders and the leaders of those hostels to recruit people from rural areas to come to the mines for labor. So the introduction of tax laws where they wanted a rent, a coin to pay for people to pay tax. When people were not saying they don't want to pay tax, but they could use a bartering system where they will exchange their livestock or their produce for money and they get tax. So they saw that they were not going to be able to recruit black people into as laborers. They started taking the land because men were working in the mines for about a year or two. They get a lot of money. They go buy livestock and stay at home and not come back to work. So that is why they said, okay, we take the land from them and then they will never know where to graze, where to plant, and then they will come to work at the. Today, the mine worker was the most progressive worker because of the rent value that they used and the remittances that they used to send at home as compared to a farmer. Today, being a farmer in South Africa with all those trade laws, World Trade Organizations and agricultural policies and World Bank structural adjustment policies, is being a poor person. It doesn't matter whether you own a farm or not. The thing is you are just a worker in that farm because the kind of offtake agreements that they make our farmers to sign is an offtake agreement that dictates the price and that so in a way that you have to count your produce because you have agreed to supply a certain amount. Now, without that certain amount, you're not getting your check. You are not going to be able to operationalize and pay your labor and input cost. So if you look at a farmer's net profit, it is like a salary of a person who works in the mine.
Oh.
It is equal to the salary. They don't have to own land. They don't. They just. So it is that inequality that brings poverty. Now that is why people are running towards the urban centers. If you look at most rural areas, there was a guy from the university who asked me, "Is it still worth it to live in the rural areas?" And it pained me. I felt like it's an offense, because the way he analyzed it from his area. Rural people are for old people and orphans who don't have income. And when those people die, the young people who graduate, they don't want to go back to work there.
Yeah.
So you find even a primary school or a high school not having enough kids Because as you graduate, you go to the urban center. Now you don't want your kid to go back to the rural area because you think it's poverty. So you want a private school, you want a better life. And those people who are in the urban area, they came from the rural areas in search of the better life, only to find that life is even horrendous than
Yes, yes.
at home. So
Actually,
that's, I mean, it is
yeah,
systematic.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
This is actually a vicious cycle, I would say.
it's
Why
a
I'm saying
vicious
the
cycle.
vicious cycle is that uh, the 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 capitalist economy that we are in these days, it actually make you hate yourself. So why
Yes.
you hate yourself means when you are in a village, you think I don't have anything. So I migrate to cities in my hope that I will earn something. And we are given some examples, some big names, some big individuals, and we are given these
Mm.
narratives. Oh, he was
Mm.
a very poor guy who migrated to city and today he is the head of the global company and this and that. So these stories,
Exactly.
people love. People don't think that these are the privileged people, not just, so they migrate to the cities, and when they migrate to the cities, they lose their identity. Let me tell you, migration finish your identity. You can't even fight.
You
No
can't
way
even, you
forward.
don't know.
You don't fight. Nobody stand with you. If I lived my life as a migrant for many years outside, coming even to Delhi, nobody knew me that way.
Mm.
And it's a pain because you lose your own identity.
Mm. You have to
And,
mix and mingle.
and so the people come to cities, they live in a pathetic condition, and our great capital world, they go to hijack our land. So they will go to, where the villages are emptied. So what
Mm.
they want is they want to make agriculture, people leave agriculture so that they can
Mm.
capitalize on it and corporatize the agriculture. So that's the
Mm.
whole
Mm.
cycle is that it's like a
That's it.
voluntary retirement scheme of the farmers. So I
Mm.
tell them that they are forcing you to retire. You hate that this is a bad thing. And then you go to the cities, live in a worse condition. And
Mm.
then you can't return because it is a question of your prestige and whole issue of your own self. Oh, this guy went to the city
Yes. Yes.
and is returning. So people suffer in silence. They suffer in silence, but they can't return to their homes because
Mm.
how can they say show their faces that I went to the urban area for earning money and I'm unable to do that. So nobody
Correct.
returned and they suffer in silence. And then
Mm.
the entire land is now being privatized, being given to capitalists. That's the whole cycle I was mentioning. So coming back to the
Mm.
question, I was a young boy when Nelson Mandela was released from the prison. He came to India. The first visit was India actually in
Mm.
1990. I think it was
Yes.
February 1990. He visited India, and
Mm.
the whole we were very happy that Africa is now a new dawn has come. So I
Mm.
want to ask you, I want to understand for you. For many years, many people could not understand. Now, you tell me this, how have things changed and not changed in your country? What changed and what has
Mm.
not changed? In terms of
Mm.
people's empowerment, in terms of the racial discrimination that the people faced in your country and that
Mm.
you fought, how things
Mm.
are changed or not changed?
Mm.
The banks are still in the control of the whites.
Yeah. So I think in 1994, when we voted the new democracy, we were very, very excited because we have
You mute. Your mic is mute. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
yeah, sorry about that. There was a call coming in disrupting
Oh,
my
oh,
Zoom.
okay.
Yeah. So it was a ray of hope for us. And one thing that changed was that the Constitution of South Africa guaranteed equality. It guaranteed access. it guaranteed non-discrimination. We saw our government subscribing to international treaties like CEDAW, the Convention on Elimination of All Discrimination Against Women. We saw our government signing very progressive treaties like the Free, Prior, and Informed Consent, the Convention on Indigenous People's Rights. So we had hope. And during Mandela's time, let me tell you, there was a workshop. Civil society was at work. They were workshopping us about fundamental rights in the Constitution, what is human rights, how do you treat another person, tolerance of views that you don't agree with. And we saw, you know, before 94, people were dying because of what you said in a meeting.
Yeah.
So after 94, you would just argue with me and then we will still go out and be friends, because it is not about personal issues. It's about changing the system. And, you know, so we started to understand that, okay, if a person disagrees with you, you need to listen and understand him better. In fact, this is the person you should engage more than avoiding because he doesn't agree with, because he might have a point, he might see the blind spot that you don't see.
Yeah.
So it was progressive in a way that people were starting to be tolerant with each other. We were mixing inter-provinces. We thought those apartheid boundaries were not so where there's, like, you know, in South Africa, we have about 11 or more indigenous languages. So we had Zululand, Tswanas, and whatever. So we started to mix, and there was that freedom of movement. So you could move to anywhere you can go and stay. You can buy land anyway. What we missed out was that we don't have economy liberalized. Economy was not liberalized. That it was another means of exclusion. So you can like to be in Joburg, in certain northern suburbs, or in Durban around the sea, or Cape Town, but without that economic asset where you don't have money. As Black people, we didn't have money. So what we did in the Constitution, what was wrong was that we started saying everything is equal without redistributing the wealth.
Yeah.
Yes, you
So just
understand?
a slogan, yeah.
Exactly, and that was, this is a contestation around section 25, when we say, okay, there's subsection 1 up to 9, section 25 of the Constitution, subsection 1 up to 9. So what is wrong? Why can't the land be redistributed? You understand? The property clause, which protects the right of a property owner.
Yes,
You understand? We
that is
didn't
the,
realize that we as Black people, the indigenous people of this country, are not property owners. Therefore, you need to redistribute first.
That is how the elite classes actually opposed in India when we had a Jamindari Abolition Act in 1951, 52.
Yes.
When it came into our parliament, it was opposed by the elite classes, and then right to property was accepted in our constitution, because the elite classes said you can't take, and because most of the,
you can't take, they are protected by the constitution.
Most of the political leaders who were part of our constituent assembly actually were the old rajas, maharajas, kings, queens, erstwhile provinces, and rich people. Yes. So they actually opposed everything.
Exactly. So now they are protected by the law. And what we thought was, you know, when Nelson Mandela said, never, never, and never again shall someone have to suffer in the hands of another. But when she said never and never again, she thought, he thought, the old man, he thought he's protecting the rights of everybody. But then it was premature. That clause was premature because the land and wealth, and we're not talking about land only, you know, all the economy, asset, and whatever, and even the means of production was in the hands of the minority. Therefore, now they are protected, and that is why there's frustration, and that's why our governments cannot deliver, because now they have a duty to protect property owners against whatever, but there is, under that same section, remember it's 1 up to 9.
Yeah.
Under that same section, there's expropriation clause. Our government is hesitating to have expropriation clause.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not a politician, but I hear says that because there is an arrangement between the Queen Mother in England and our government, and because some of foreign ownership mostly is owned by all those wealthy people in the north, and that is why a government is working like on top of eggs when they have to touch property owners, because these are the people with economic power in all our African countries, by the
You
way, not
see,
South Africa.
yeah, it's like, that is where the question, we always question what kind of independence it is. What has happened, in my opinion, what I felt is the Western world is also quite smart in certain things. They produce individuals and then individuals become larger than life. So we do the identity thing that we have our leader, but they control the levers of power. And
Yes,
so it's like, old wine in new bottle. So you have the same thing,
exactly.
and you have changed the sticker of the bottle, and and
But the product is still the same.
product is
Exactly.
still the same.
You describe it so nicely. I like the way you describe it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Old wine in a new
it's
bottle.
very painful
Because
because I
if you
felt
look at the,
actually.
even if we try to be independent, so I agree that the land that is held by Black people is small, is 13%, maybe small, maybe a bit more. I don't know, but it's 13% confirmed by statistics. And I agree that there's 87%, and there's that 87% there's private owned land, big state owned, not state owned, there's big cooperative owned um, estates. There's also trust owned estates. But I still argue that if we have the same opportunities in the small land that we have, especially in the rural areas, we can still produce.
Yeah.
We can have livestock. Life can go on. But because of the laws that are there, made also from the World Trade companies, World Bank, and World Trade organizations, we are not able to strive. So this small minority wealth holders are so organized that they buy from each other, they they procure from each other, they discriminate against black produce. Even if you go to the auction, so there was this woman who was sharing her experiences with us, and she was saying, if you go to the auction and you want value for money, you should partner with a white person who will auction your livestock
I
as
understand.
his own. Then you get a better price. But if you go there as Constance Mogale, a black rural woman from Kutgefon and Ventersdorp, those people, they will just put a lower price. They have the way of making sure that you don't get value for money. So this is it. They still own the means of production. They own the markets. They own, all the spaces.
Yes, yes.
So as a black person, you will be reduced, you will be reminded, you will be told you are a black person, you cannot own this. And even if you buy property around them, so they also have like residents associations,
Okay.
like property associations around areas that they don't want you to touch. But land is on the market every day. You can go to the auction and get that land.
Yeah.
Once they are, I also have a case study where a black woman took a tender, won this thing at the auction. But when white people realized that she was actually a black woman who was the highest bidder, they organized themselves, they collected their money, they gave the owner of the house to say now he doesn't want. So, but the auction laws are saying once a highest bidder has done it at auction, you can reverse that decision. But I've got at least 2 or 3 cases where the sale was reversed just because they are black people.
Yeah.
So how is government intervening on these things? So you find that you struggle with in the jungle on your own,
Yeah. Yeah.
as if there is no government. There's
Yeah.
no, the state, what is the role of the state when people have to struggle in these spaces and there's no
See,
protection, there's no, you understand?
I think, yeah, I think one thing that I realize it in our own country and various countries, this is the legacy of the colonization. The legacy of the colonization actually has one, the corrupt leadership, and they create leadership and they create corrupt leadership from the
Yes,
people, from your own communities, so that
yes,
people live under the impression that the government is our own, but actually the government work for the what you call the those who sponsor them. So it's not
exactly.
most of the government are so-called democratic, but they are not really democratic.
They are not, because they answer to those who, the hand that feeds them.
Yes.
But I mean, we are the hands that feed them, because the fiscal that they make through tax collection is even more than what they get from those China or whoever. And let me tell you, I don't understand. I am so against our government taking money from the outside world and taking money which is having conditions attached to it. Because this outside world, especially the strategies, the Chinese, the Indians, the US, the Northern, the World Bank, let me not leave it out, they create a debt crisis, deliberate, so that they can grab. You understand? They are not even investors. I don't know who came with that ridiculous way, because they're not investors. So there is a study in South Africa on elite capture. So I'll
Okay.
share that with you. That study was
Yeah.
done by the University of Western Cape.
Okay.
So that elite capture report shows how investors from outside come in as investors in a citrus farm or in a Aventura resort, whatever. But then they apply for funding. You
Yes.
understand? And then they apply for funding in the same government. That this government, our government, when they give you a loan as a farm owner, they will tell you you need a strategic partner, and they will
Yeah.
impose that strategic
Yeah.
to you. So that strategic partner is sometimes those investment companies. They create their own companies, the pro bono and safe companies with names, and then if you calculate at the income that came to their port, plus the production that they are gonna make, and then they make and the produce that they coming to secure food for their own countries, because all that food that produced on it goes exports, all of it exported outside the country. How tax laws work, I don't know. But then you find that the income that came, our government is one of, they gave them money again to produce, plus they got money from outside. So do you think those people are investors? They are not investors, they are subsidy spongers.
Yeah.
They take,
all the
they
all the
take,
all
they
the
take.
corporations are actually using our subsidies. There's no doubt about it. But when you give poor at 10 rupees, you say it is subsidized. When you give rich people millions of dollars, you don't say it is subsidy. You say it is incentive. So the
I wish our
terminology.
government, can adopt the women's right to say no. No. If they can say no to subsidies and they say no, we are hungry, we know, but we have our pride. Our land is our pride. Our people will, I mean, we survived apartheid. So some of them were in exile, they will never know, because even their kids are coming with this coconut English and having all those
Yeah.
degrees, and they are the ones who are ambassadors representing government in different countries, and even where, so they will never know. I I was forcefully removed with my grandparents. I know how to go and fetch water in the river. I know how salty water, which is contaminated, tastes. So if we survive that hunger, we can survive even now without subsidies. We don't want subsidies. Even these food parcels that we are giving to people, how many times can you give a household subsidy?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
give them today, tomorrow they will. I mean, I buy groceries of around 5,000 a month in my house. Yet I want to give a subsidy of 600 people, 600 rent to a household, and praise myself that I gave a COVID relief of food
So much.
parcels. How long is it going to last? How long?
It's only, satisfying the urban egos, that we contributed something for the people.
Exactly. You give one of the families, you take yourself a photo, you post it on Facebook.
So
how much are you buying groceries at your house?
Yeah, that's true.
So I think our government can just say no to this. And I know that I'm saying it with, I'm going to be personally affected, because as activists and practitioners who get salaries, it's easy for us to say things, but we need to understand
I
that
think,
when
we have to ask questions. We have to ask questions, and
are we able to give up our comfort zones?
Yes, and at
Because
least
we are captured in the system.
Yeah, I agree with your point. Absolutely. This is, what is happening is this. This is, as I said, the cycle is very long. The nexus, and the nexus is like it, not just elite capture. It also elite capture the intellectuals who can speak. So people don't speak, and the people, develop a new kind of narratives. So you build up new narratives. So, whenever anybody questions, you see, in the whole Western world, the one person who was vilified from Africa was Winnie Mandela.
Yes.
She was
vilified like she was a villain, yes, of the party and the
So
country.
because she
was
had more
the most
power.
brave,
She was a brave woman, and I really salute her more than Nelson Mandela, actually. Fighting and all this thing. But she was all the time made look like as if she was very corrupt, very murderer, all this kind of thing. Similarly, what happened in Zimbabwe, we understand there is a lot of corruption, things happen. Robert Mugabe, when he was good, as long as he was quiet, but he became bad if he's asking, he started snatching land.
When he started challenging the North, he became a very bad person,
Yeah. So
then we need to check on also the role of the media in how they portrayed our struggles and our fate and our heroes. So for me, Robert Mugabe was my hero. She still is. Utata Nelson Mandela still is my hero, because there's no better role models. If you look at the policies that Nelson Mandela did in 1994, and the Reconstruction and Development Program, which made sure that there's a redistribution of wealth, land is redistributed. It was not the best program. We criticized it even then, but it was the best.
Yeah,
it was the best.
he also knew it very well, because that time he also knew it very well, because by extreme positions you can't really gain anything, because they know and the Western powers were so determined, and this government that time, the Pik Botha government here, so neither English nor American were ready to withdraw, but it was a kind of middle path. That middle path, that he took. But we know that
middle path. It was a bridge. Yes. It was a bridge from poor to wealth. Making sure that resources can flow. But the presidents which came after that, they changed. We thought Mbeki changed for the West. When Zuma came, it was like looting all the way, and now it's President Ramaphosa. We really don't know. We don't know. We don't have something tangible to show. Really, we still are wondering in the dark what is happening, which direction is the country taking, what to expect. The health system is collapsing. The educational system is collapsing. You know what? Sometimes I think this is just deliberate, because it is meant to frustrate, so that we can take our eyes and look to the north and ask for help. And they become this private sector and big corporates are coming like messiahs who are coming to save the days, only to find that they want to capture. They want to.
That's the absolute reality. I agree with you. See, this is actually also, we have to understand that the democracy that we have inherited is a colonial democracy. It's a colonial model. So that colonial model is actually has corrupted our elite classes, the leadership.
Mm.
And also the first past is post system. I think Africa also has the same system as the British have or the Indians have. So here also
Yes.
we feel the problem with the electronic system, electoral system. The electoral system is also like, not, it's not the
It's
proportional.
not perfect. It's not perfect. It is not
It's
perfect.
very
But
dangerous
I
actually.
think we in South Africa, I haven't read that judgment very well, but there was I think there's a progressive judgment in the electoral system of the country that the people must choose their own president. So you can stand for a president or for a certain position without being affiliated to any
In
party.
political.
You don't have to be affiliated. Yeah, that is a progressive judgment, but we know how our people's mindset are. The biggest challenge is on our people's mindset because
Yeah,
I don't think they will vote for you if you are an independent candidate.
yeah,
They would
yeah.
want you to come from a certain party. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of some what we call mathematics, I would come now to a bit of basically the figures. Uh, what is the status of the landless? Who is a landless in your country? How much land a poor person acquires? Uh, what is like?
Are
What
you
is it?
asking about landless?
Yeah, land. Yes, I'm asking about
Okay.
who is the land.
Landlessness.
Landlessness. What is
Landlessness.
landlessness? Absolutely no land or some land. Are there any categories like
So
this is landless, this is semi-landless, this is middle, this is rich? Can you tell us about the ownership kind of?
so there's so many definitions. So it depends on the topic you are writing about. There's so many. So everybody has designed their own definitions. Landlessness in South Africa, I described it as a person with no security of tenure. So the security of tenure, because South Africa has a dual system where there's private ownership and then there's communal ownership. So in communal ownership, as the country, we were never able to come up with a security of tenure law that protects people living in the communal area. So it is only private tenure that has been registered and it is recognized legally. Now, without that private tenure law or title deed, I regard you as a landless. It's a landless person because you are not secured. If somebody challenges your
Yeah,
status and want to disinherit you or to dispossess you, it is easy because you are not protected by the law. And that is my definition of landlessness. For me, people living in communal areas are like landless people because they don't have any security of thing. And that is why, as an organization, as the Alliance for Rural Democracy, the Land Access Movement of South Africa, the uh, the AFRAs, the Nkuzis, the landless, the civil society only, we have been saying and screaming that recognize customary law. We have been saying to government, recognize customary law because people can only have a leg to stand on when they talk about the inherited rights that they inherited from generation to generation and the consensus between neighborhood that they confirm that they know
yeah,
that you are
yes,
you have security of tenure, you belong to this land and this land belongs to you. It is only through customary law that we're gonna win this fight. And we have been saying to government, recognize customary law. We even took a strategic litigation on customary law and we have successfully won it in the court battle. We even participated in this high-level panel, the Motlante level, high-level panel. The current President Ramaphosa, appointed the panel on land reform. He called it an advisory panel on land reform. Now, what I hate about the ways advisory and high-level panels and voluntary guidelines is that they are not enforceable. But their reports, all of them are supporting customary rights. and saying customary people's land rights must be recognized according to the law. But what the president does with those reports, we don't know. What parliament does with those reports, we don't know. So that is my description of landlessness. So the other description
No,
of
but
like
there is no
lobby,
is there any official definition?
there's no official definition really of landlessness, because I can call myself landlessness if I'm a daughter living in my mother's house, because I have no automatic rights to that house, especially when my mother is also living in a customary land.
So after
So
after your revolution or independence, was land on the government agenda, and has it been distributed or redistributed? Do you know? Do you have
So
that case?
after even before the independence, government was in the government, land was in the government agenda. So the black people challenged the then government, the white-led government, on land. And what we call, I don't know if you are familiar with the CODESA negotiation, CODESA.
Okay, I heard
So
about
that is the Congress for Democratic South Africa, forums that were developed by de Klerk before Mandela came in to negotiate how democracy is going to look like. And land was on the top. There was lobbies like the Pan-African Congress, the Azapos, and even the ANC as well, to say land. Without land, we cannot even start to talk. Land is the priority, but the ANC came with a compromise. And that is why there was a cut-off date of 1913, that the government will return land that was taken from black people after 1913, after. And that is why in that interview, written interview that you gave me, I started relating by the history of this possession, because then you'll see that by 1913, land was already taken from people. It was only like 9% plus the 4% under the South African National Trust. And land was, so even if we say people can claim land, people are not gonna get their land back, because if you can't go back to 1913, then it means there's no land. Black people are reduced to the 9% or 13% of the land. But then there was 3 programs. One was that restitution, which has a cut-off date. The second one was redistribution, which allows people now to identify land outside the 13% in the private land. And if the person who is the current owner is willing to negotiate and sell it to you, government can buy it on your behalf and then give it to you. So that was the second program, the redistribution. So government can buy and redistribute. And then the last one was the tenure, because we recognize that the tenure program, we recognize that black people were never given security of tenure in terms of title deeds or any private tenure form before. So that is why there's this program, security of tenure. So now that security of tenure is both for farm dwellers in the private land who are living in the farms as a labor tenant or farm dwellers. And then the other one is the communal tenure, where people are living under traditional leaders or are living as a communal under any institutional arrangement. So that's the second one. So both of those tenure, there are tenure laws that were in place for private land in terms of farm workers and farm dwellers, but they were also not enforceable. They had gaps. People are evicted even though there's laws like that. So in the urban areas, there's this protection or prevention of illegal evictions, PI. So those ones are like flat dwellers and people who are living in the urban areas. So all those eviction laws and tenure laws are really not enforceable, because government has to come up with an act, which is one act that prevents evictions, and one act that protects security of tenure, that guarantees that a person cannot be moved without her consent or or without an expropriation intervention by government, because sometimes people have to be moved
Yes.
for important things, for public goods, for whatever. So there's no expropriation act that protects. So the expropriation act that they still use in South Africa, it is a 1978 act, an apartheid law.
Okay.
So there's this current government never came with an expropriation act. And then the second one is the Redistribution Act is absent as well. So any minister coming in comes with his own policy or program.
Oh.
And then the other one, when we come, he doesn't like it, he changes it like that. Where they getting orders to change policies like that, we don't know. So we need a Redistribution Act, which is like the Restitution Act. So the Restitution Act, because it is an act of parliament, we are able to take government to court if they don't deliver on their deadlines. Communities are able to say, you said we promised land, we gave you, you said you are researching, we gave you all evidence, this is our land, why are you waiting? So they are able to, so there's land claims court in South Africa, and then there's the Constitutional Court. But in terms of redistribution, the core strategic program, which is going to make sure that land is redistributed equitably, because not everybody wants land, you see, is absent. There's no law. So government has failed. Section 25, subsection 7, Section 25, subsection 6. They have not come with an act to make sure that Section 25, which guarantees property rights, is completed. Yeah, so they are sitting in their in
So that
parliament, in their
means,
offices,
yeah.
and they are not doing anything.
So that means
Yeah.
that the farmers, like there must be very big farmers in your country. Those big farmers remain untouched, and there is no law like we had actually in India. It was not implemented properly, but it was, which described as, it's called land ceiling law. So the government placed a ceiling, the number of the amount of land one can have, the size of the land. So like it was like 18 acre or 22 acre or like different states. Is there any ceiling law in your country to describe, so that
yeah, so that kind of law which dictates how many hectares an individual or a family can own
have
was proposed ever since 2005. So in 2005, there was a big gathering called the Land Summit of 2005. If you Google it, you'll see Land Summit 2005. It was in the resolutions where there's going to be a limitation of foreign-owned land, and then there's also going to be a land ceiling. But also, even before the democracy, there was a proposal of subdivision of agricultural land. So you see, because government, when they took the apartheid government, when they took land, they turned it into big farms, and they started demarcating it according to their likes and don't likes, according to capacity. Now, we didn't do farms as Black people. We didn't say we are claiming farms. We don't want farms. We want land, access, because there are limited resources in land, like hunting rights. There are herbal harvesting rights. There's fishing rights. There's limited resources, like streams are limited. You can't find mountains everywhere. You can't find some vegetations everywhere. And that is why we don't want land for agriculture to produce maize and oil and geotropha. They've got policies, so wrong assumptions. They've got wrong assumptions, and then it led to wrong policies. That if you get this land, you must produce how many hectares, and you must send it to Europe how many bags of meat. No, there is a different interpretation of why Black person need land. All right, so we are being limited because of now. When they demarcated that farm, it means you are excluding other people from that resource, which is limited. You understand? If you say this is my farm, but there's Vaal River flowing in your farm, and it means other people are staying in arid areas where there's nothing. It means they cannot access that resource, and that is one of the main contestation that we did when we said we don't want this Communal Land Rights Act, because it's privatizing, it's
Yeah.
excluding. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah. Their land is for profit. Our land is for culture and our motherland. It's
Yes,
a
yes.
difference
It's
because
more than that.
is a mother earth. People respect it. People link to it. You know, that this is my land. This is my culture, and this is my
Yes.
life. For them, it is
This is
land for
my life.
profit.
Exactly. Yes, yes.
So,
Mm.
so yeah,
So probably also we are debating in South Africa the kind of tenure systems we want, because the current tenure system, this dual system where there's private land and there's public land, it cannot address those needs that I've already mentioned. We need to debate amongst ourselves, because right now we don't have answers. And there's this book written by Ben Cousins, Rosa Willing. Yeah, I don't know, the names are coming and going,
okay, no
but
problem.
it's called Land Untitled. It's called Land Untitled. So that book talks about the kind of tenure systems that would be adequate and relevant to people in communal setting. We agree that land cannot be an open access asset.
Yeah,
It must be protected. Yeah. So we are saying that the current tenure system that we have in South Africa, that of private and public, is not adequate to address the land needs in South Africa. And as we're trying to propose policy proposals, we need to make sure that we advocate for messages that are going to be relevant and appropriate for the current landlessness and the land hungry people in South Africa.
one of the point that we feel like in India, because we have the same colonial legacy and then the elite capture. Elite in our
Mm.
country remained the caste forces, you know, the high caste people, so called,
Yes.
and we had the large number of Dalits and tribals and other backward communities, the farmers, they remain on the margins. So after the independence, a lot of people who were the part of the British bureaucracy became the leader in our bureaucratic structure. So my
Yes.
question is, after your independence, uh, is the structure of your government has changed? How far has the representation of the black community been in the top positions in your country?
Mm.
Mm.
So after the independence, uh, the structural adjustment policies remained. There was going to be a process to make sure that there's radical transformation of certain laws and introduction of other laws to make sure that the society as a whole in South Africa feel recognized and important and is protected. So there was introduction of some progressive laws like the Domestic Violence Act, like the Land Reform, the Restitution of Land Rights Act, some progress there and then. And there was also a change in terms of the parliament. Black people, 80% of it went to parliament, and white people left they left. I mean, they were willing to leave because they were going for business. So this is the trend that we see. People become government officials and then later they say, I'm gonna go join
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the trend. So so there was a change in terms of representation, the electoral system, but there is this tentacles of the apartheid colonial laws that is still visible in our laws, in practice, and yeah, and everywhere. So, like for example, the system of government. I don't know if I don't. I think I was still very young. I wouldn't remember that whether there was local government, but I remember there were local commissioners in apartheid, which were delegated the task of managing the Bantustans, managing land. land and agriculture, where people have to go and buy grazing rights and pay for farming fees like that. So there was local government. So if you look at the way government is structured, the only change that was done is the provinces, because in the apartheid government we have Bantu stands, Buputatswana, Leboa Khomo, former Kazankulu, KwaZulu Natal, Zululand, and like Orange Free State like that. So the only restructuring was in terms of provinces, but it was not major because the provinces are still ethnic groups. Like, you understand, we know Eastern Cape is Xhosa, we know Northwest is Tswana dominated. It's still like that. But though, I mean, in practice, we were trying to introduce the new South Africa with only levels of government that will make it easy for government to govern, not because of ethnic group or whatever. But because it was entrenched in the mindset of people, really, that this is a Tswana area, this is a Xhosa area, it is still like that. So those Bantu stand, they are still visible very much so. But what is annoying is when they become visible now in the policies and in the bills, in the parliament laws, where they want to subject a certain group of people by virtue of the territory where they live in. They must subscribe to certain traditional leader. And if you say to me, I must subscribe to a certain traditional leader, you are saying to me, I must say to me, I may say to people, I'm subscribing to a Soto culture, even though I'm not Soto, but by virtue of me living in that location, which is given to a certain traditional leader. So it means you are imposing an identity on me, which is very similar to what apartheid did. Now, so we see that in laws like the Traditional Courts Bill, the Traditional Leadership and Governance Framework Act, in now the Khoisan Leadership, the Traditional Leadership and Khoisan Leadership Bill, the Communal Land Bill. So all the rural land laws are like traditional leaders are at the fore. And if you look at it, it is just wiping out the rights of people to be consulted as individuals, as citizens, and to make their opinions known around anything, whether it is development or so. So they want to wipe those rights. So if you agree that you subscribe to this traditional leader, it means you're giving your power of attorney to that leader. It means that leader can take decisions about anything belonging to you without even consulting, because that's how apartheid did.
Yes.
So the most important thing here is about how women were treated in those territories. The bad customary law practices that made sure that women will never own property, women will never be in decision-making structures, women are just children. So they are sensitive, so you have to take care of them. So they don't have brains, they cannot think for themselves. This is what we are getting annoyed about, because now it's reversing all those gains that was made by democracy. By around the world, women are now recognized as individuals in their own right, as people who can also make a contribution in strategy, in economy, in whatever, social issues especially. So if you agree to those laws, you reverse those gains made. Yeah.
Yeah, my point was also like, politically, I can understand that there are 80% of the black community people in the parliament. My question was, has this change come in the policy level? Like, who are the educationists in your country? Who are the bankers? Who are the media person? Is the presence of the African origin people, the black African people, are they dominating there, or they are still far away in these places? Because today the power is not merely the political power. Power is basically who are controlling political power, and the media, the economy, the education, and the land. These are 3, 4, 5 sectors. So in these 4, 5 sectors, how is the condition? of the black, and can you do a comparison who might own how? The banks, economy, industries, education, schools, colleges, who are the making the syllabus, who are in the law, who are the civil servants in your country. So that's the most important part.
That's the important one. So like I said earlier, that was an oversight. So people were just excited to have a black president,
Yeah.
to have ministers, to have women represented in
Yeah.
parliament, but they neglected the economic factor. And that is why EFF was born as Economic Freedom Front. But because we've elected those, all the economic hubs are owned by the white minority. Even the profession in the university. If you want to be passing the board of exams, whatever, you must be a friend to some Jewish lawyer who control the space. Even the accounting space in the financial sector, you cannot. Our kids are struggling in the university to just get a degree in financial accountant. So to be a financial accountant in South Africa, the rest of South Africa, there's less 200, less than 200 accountants in South Africa. So it shows how controlled and exclusive those spaces of power are. The bankers, if I see a black banker, I don't know. I know of some few. I don't know. It's like it's in a movie because I don't even know any black banker. So if you open a bank in FNB, for example, and you like you are working with white people who are well known in Stellenbosch and other powerful people, you can't even make a transaction without those people knowing because they control that space, the banking space, the financial space controlled by the white minority, the production space, industries by the white minority. Look at the Pick and Pays, the shop rights, whatever. Other African countries hate South Africans because they say your companies are coming to our country and they are exploiting labor and whatever. But this is the same. It is not our companies, and whoever black person, I'll slap any black person who will say ShopRite is a South African company. It is never a South African company because South African blacks are working as slaves in those supermarket and chain stores. So it is not ours. It's not because of South Africa or Nigeria or Zimbabwe. It's a white minority controlling Africa as a whole, knowing what they do. So, like you are saying, I mean, that is why right now, last year in 2019, before the elections, the topic of radical economic transformation was on the screens of TV, on the mouth of every politician. We had a big debate. We had a big debate session where we had all those powerful people, like from the banks, from the companies, the private sector, and then the government, and then the auditors, and then the communities, trying to exchange views of where is the bottlenecks, and if we are going to make sure that the people recognize economic emancipation in their lifetime, what needs to be done? Where are the strategic points to just, unblock and the things become okay? But you must know that if you are challenging power, you are challenging comfort zones of people who will also defend that comfort zone. Nobody is going to agree. So we need to work on the mindset of the white people themselves. They need to realize that whiteness and their privilege, and they need to make sure that they are willingly trying to bridge to meet us halfway. That is the only thing that could happen if we will have to talk about reconciliation and reconstruction. But now, if they can't do that, people are taking by force. We're gonna take by force. Yes.
So, who owns the media in your country? Do you have the black-owned media?
So there are black owned medias, but they are very small entrepreneurs, like at the survival mode. You understand? They won't survive like big media companies, which has been in the mainstream. Yeah.
So they are not that influential, that means.
Yeah, because now people, when they get conscious, they know who to. So I never publish my articles in any media newspaper. I publish it with Daily Maverick. I don't know who owns it, but I like the way they portray our stories,
Oh,
and they are willing to listen to our stories, and they publish your story the way it is. They might edit there and there, but they will never lose the gist of the matter. So there are some media houses which are very I mean, what is it? They're very receptive to our own jargon, and they are very sympathetic to our cause. So it doesn't matter who owns it. I don't know who owns it, but we're looking at that, because now if black media also, the channels that they get in terms of in terms of TV, they are the less watched TV. You must understand that money is power. So without money, you can't buy a slot in a popular channel. You understand? So you bridge there and there anyway. Yeah. So that is what it is. So there are small media companies which are not necessarily in the mainstream, which does drama, comics, and
okay.
like documentaries for people to check. Yeah.
So why I'm seeing, because what is happening is that if you have political power, but your representation is low in these important sectors, particularly like media or economy or education, then your political power get manipulated. Because
With
if
what political power, but conscientization is not there. So people think they can all be CEOs of Anglo-American or SABC, but it's a limited space, and it was never
yes,
designed for everyone to come in.
obviously,
So we need to create our own space, which is going to make
yes,
sure we feel adequate. We don't have to have hierarchy spaces where
yes,
I'm what do they call it when a black person is in the front? I'm fronted as director, whatever. Who cares? I might not be a director, but I might
yeah,
make a difference
yeah,
where I am. I'm
yeah,
making waves wherever I am. I'm not even a member of parliament, but I'm making waves where I am. That is important. People must be happy about themselves,
yes.
and then try to create their own spaces where they feel happy and not pushed, and not having this pressure to please people. So they
Mm.
must just show up as they are. It doesn't matter whether you are an ordinary domestic worker, but you want to do the work you want to do and you are happy about it. That's
Yeah.
it. So
No, that,
we must stop competing for recognition. We
yeah,
must
yeah.
stop competing for positions. We must stop fighting for affirmation, external affirmation, because that is what is holding us back.
Yeah, I agree with the point, because what happens most of the time, it is again the same. I feel it's a kind of a colonial mindset. When we try to get, if we get a small prize from a rich man or big people, we feel very proud. So we want to get justified. We legitimize
Yes,
ourselves that if
exactly.
if you are doing some good work, it doesn't need my approval. It needs your own approval that
Yes.
you are doing your
Your
conscience,
own
your work.
exactly.
So I agree with the point.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, is slavery still existing in your country? Is slavery and racism still there in your country?
In my country,
Yeah, is
raci-
slavery and racism both?
racism racism is a global system.
Okay.
It exists everywhere.
Mhm.
It exists everywhere. But the people who benefits, or who are the perpetrators, I don't want to use perpetrator
Okay.
of racism, they know themselves. It doesn't matter whether they become nice in public. The way you treat your own black assistant at home, your black workers, it shows what kind of a person you are. You understand? And it's also not about money and reward, but
Yeah.
it's about humanity. It's about humanity. It's about recognizing that this black person is another human being and will have the same needs that I have as a human. and not the needs of charity, of me being charitable to them, but
Yeah.
of being receptive and accommodating and compassionate and love. You understand?
Yes.
So without that, you know, you can't tell me because when you are employing 500 people, you are not a racist. So, but racist sometimes is an unconscious thing because of people where they grew up knowing that they are better than black people.
Yes. Yes.
They were conditioned to know that they are masters
Yeah.
and somebody should just serve them. You
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
So it is not something that I think we also have to not to push at. We need to also we need to have this kind of discussions continuously with each other and in public, with myself and in public, so that I might not be a white person, but I might have tendencies of excluding other people and enjoying the privileges that comes to me at the expense of other people. You understand? So it is so this whiteness, it's only white people who can deal with it. You
Yes. Yes.
understand? And this privilege is only so. We must also not fight to be equal. I don't think we should fight to be equal with whites. I don't think it's possible. You understand? But we should recognize that they also need to recognize the generational uh, inheritance that they had and the privileges that come with it that makes them always like better people than us. So they mustn't just conclude that black people are lazy, black people are dull, they don't know how to analyze. So they must understand that these spaces were designed for them as white people. It was never, those universities were not designed for a black person to thrive there. Firstly, I dealt with my indigenous languages up until I was 10. I was taught by a teacher who doesn't know English up until my grade 12. How do you expect me to excel in the world of English when I mean, I have to still understand the language itself before I understand the content. So,
Absolutely.
so those are the struggles, and yet you're still being judged at the same standard, and that is racism as well, because you need to make sure that there's affirmative action that recognizes the intergenerational poverty or wealth that comes with it. So it happens all the time. It is not farm workers who evict black people only. No, it is even in the companies. If you look at the salary survey, where white people are still earning more than black people, the banks, if you look at the repo rate, when you get a loan for a house or for a car, the kind of interest they impose you on you is, they were exposed. FNB was exposed. They will charge black people more
Mm.
interest. White people, I don't know. Even in these policies, the Provident Fund, whatever. There was a time when I took Provident Fund for all the LAMOSA stuff, and then I think 3-5 years it was doing well, that portfolio. 3-5 years they realized I don't have a degree. They said, no, we put you in the wrong
Mm.
column. So it means I'm not gonna get the same as a person with degree and whatever. You understand? So racism happens sometimes unintentional, sometimes intentional. Sometimes we are able to see it immediately and not tolerate it, but sometimes we tolerate it because we don't see it.
But see, the white is good and black is bad. This whole concept, the whole narrative
Yes,
was very cleverly built up. And
exactly.
uh,
Satan is black, God is white.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You see, we always say, I never use this term. Like in India also, we have. They say black money. I say, why should illicit money is called black money? Because all the black money is
Yes.
basically owned by the people living in Switzerland and America. We don't even
Yes.
know what is that. So this whole narratives that are built up. In fact, I don't know whether you heard about this about Jesus Christ, because
Yes.
there is a study came that why Jesus portrayed as white. He was born up in a
Yes.
place which is not a European place actually. Isa was born in Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and And he
My
must have
point
been,
exactly.
yeah. So how, so there are people who are now scientists, who are researchers, are telling us that the Jesus was converted into white very, very cleverly, slowly to, make this whole supremacy of the whites. So this is the tragic, this
Mm,
is how people make narratives. And then in the
exactly.
program,
So
they
even
will,
the kind of movies that we watch,
yeah,
yeah, I was saying even the kind of movies that we watch, they are
yes.
made to brainwash us to see America as powerful and white people as power and godly, and black people always wishes and something bad. So
So, so,
the
so
media has a role to play
white is
in
considered to be
changing
the
that
symbol of
mindset.
peace. White is considered to be a
Yo,
symbol of peace. So whenever you have to
yes,
have peace rallies, you have to show the white flag. And whenever you have
yes,
to a negative thing, you have to show the black flags. Why? Why? And we
yes.
fall in trap of it.
Weddings, people wear white at the weddings, then they wear black
Yeah,
at
yeah.
funerals.
As a
You
protest.
know?
So
Yeah.
these are the
Mm.
narratives. So it's very sad actually, because we fall in this trap, and we also use this terminology. I call this the terminology of the dominant.
Yes, it's a terminology of the dominant, and we must disrupt it because those are the kind of narrative that
Yes.
perpetuates the propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I am sure that you must have passed through that phase of when Africa was not independent in terms of the changes in the government. So how did you come into the movement? Like, you were so passionate about working, fighting. Where do you earn this fighting spirit? How did it come to you?
Yeah, like I said to many times when I introduce myself, I'm a descendant of the dispossessed. So both my maternal and paternal family, they were rural people.
Okay.
And when forceful removals came around in 1977, 1978, 79, both my families were forcefully removed. I think I was still 6 years when I saw my paternal grandmother packing, waiting for the truck to come and load for them. And they took them far away next to Botswana. And my
Okay.
maternal grandmother, I went for Christmas. And when we went for Christmas with my auntie, we found they were not there anymore. The truck has taken them to Frasgewag, it's just in the middle of nowhere. We had to go asking a long road, dry land,
Oh,
asking where they took my grandmother until we found them in a tent and a very shiny corrugated irons, very new at my grandmother's house, talking about land and how these white guys took their land, asking themselves who betrayed them because they didn't agree to this. And there was white people who wanted to buy their land back, land from them, because those were like, they were farmers with estate, like estate or plot, big plot owners, and they used to say, no, you mustn't. They used to say, we are not selling to white people because we can't sell land like tomatoes in the market. Land is an asset. We must just hold on to it and die for it. And that made me, it inspired me as I grew up, and in the activism spaces, people talking about the same thing that my grandmother used to talk about. All those land acts that I was narrating, my grandfather used to talk about them, and I used to sleep when she talked. I didn't even understand the thing. What is he saying? Mandela is out now. It was during that Kodesa time when they were negotiating land. I said, but Mandela is a hero, is out, and my grandfather was so critical of the
oh,
old men. He was saying, no, they betrayed us. But
oh.
I understood it when I now started becoming like active. I said, oh, this is what this old man used to say. And I didn't understand the thing, what he's saying. So that is how I became an activist. It is my life, because even today, there was a time when I went home. My grandmother passed away last year, by the
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
There was a time when I went home and livestock was, every time they will take livestock to the grazing camps, and then in the evening it comes back, they milk and whatever. But that time I arrived at home and the cows was at home. They were not out, and they were like, the cows were so frustrated. And I was saying, why? They saying there's a big machine at the grazing camps drilling, and it's terrorizing livestock. Livestock come jumping, and there are, in our land there is this the springboks. There's a lot of springboks. I don't know why. In summer like this, they are starting to bear children. You'll see children getting lost into your house because of those people with a helicopter. They're coming and then taking a lot of springboks away without anybody's consent. And this is the kind of economics they still own. And when you ask who's taking, what is the, what's happening, who's drilling, so I will never become, I wish for a day where I will never call myself an activist, because I become an activist because of the environment I find myself in. Now, if you find your grandmother's livestock and you find your grandmother's eyes with no hope, scared that these people are going to take this land again, you become so furious. Who would want your grandmother to be terrorized like that? And then you need to stand up, ask for help, scream if you need to, and make sure that this doesn't happen. I mean, through my activism, we won many battles and victories because we were able to go to the camp and tell those guys, go out of this, you take your keys, you take your machine. If you don't want to lose your machine, go out of the camp. So that is the only way. You need to organize as a person in your spaces, not only nationally, and it's so important that we organize in our village level, because that is where the struggle is right now. The struggle is not in those parliamentarian people, they don't care. The struggle is right there by the village, and if those people are ignorant of their rights, if those people are not assertive enough to speak life into they're gonna lose the land, they're gonna be, I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah.
So there's a lot of fire, a lot of strength in you. Who inspired you the most?
My grandmother. I always say both of my grandmother inspired me the most.
Oh.
They fought for land. They resisted. They were taken out by force. They went back, and I will never give anybody credit. But of course, I was so fortunate to meet other activists along the road, and the NGOs that used to work with us by that time, the Legal Resource Center, Black Search, the South African Council of Churches, the Rural Action Committee, TRAC, the National Land Committee. So I met people like, the people like Bo Dirkie Gilfile, the white liberals who used to face government head on and tell them what to do. Even the way I speak, I love, there's this woman called Ruth Hall. You might know him. He's of my age. He's a professor in the University of Western Cape. I like listening to her. Every time when she speaks, she punctuates. She doesn't use probably words like probably or she's not hesitant. When she speaks to power, she makes sure that she's clear, the message is clear. She uses punctual words like government must do this. You understand? So like she used all those, and I like listening to her. She's not loud like me, but the kind of punctuations she uses in her speech, you can see that this woman knows what she's proposing. She's not dilly-dallying. Probably she says that with authority because she's a researcher. She has been in the land sector longer than myself, or maybe the same period as myself, because I've known her. I've known them, Ben Cousins, Adinka Classens, Job Butlender. I've known all those powerful people in my career life. And I was listening to them, Hank Smith, listening to them, and because then I want to be like them. They are my role model, and I want to, every time I make a speech, people that I don't trust, because they might confuse me, especially when it's time for, especially when we do policy and make, it's a peak hour. I don't want to be convinced. I don't want to say probably you are right to a person that I know is in opposition to me. No, I must stick to my points, stick to my guns, and repeat them if necessary. You understand? That's it. So people have been my inspiration. There's so many role models that if you listen to them, you see, you just want to be like them. But most of the time is my communities who are resisting the mining companies at home. Woo! You know, every time you are in a public space, you speak on behalf of people as if you have authority. But when you see them speaking on their behalf and standing firm and saying, coming there, we're not coming to the party. This is the story, and you speak to it. You know, that's why I like public hearings. Yeah. When there's public hearings and communities are there, and every time when there's public hearings, I always gather my constituency. I just want to hear what they are gonna say. Yeah. And when they get there, they fire up, and that is what is inspiring me. In fact, if I listen to a community person, I don't mind to drive all night long to another community just to make sure that I listen to those voices. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as a woman, what are the hindrances? Are there hindrances for women leaders, women activists when they come into the movement? What are the hindrances outside the movement and inside the movement? Obstacles.
Outside the movement, at home, I'm always reminded I'm a girl. I'm always reminded that I'm a woman. I have a brother who is so patriarchal.
Oh.
Who is always, you know, he'll always want to know my view, but he'll always say to me, but you know, you are a woman. Mm-hmm. Always, he doesn't fail to remind me. So he has so brainwashed himself with these patriarchal tendencies that my mother is her aunt, but he'll always tell my mother that you guys are women. So it's happening every time when there's important gatherings like funerals or weddings at home. I cannot take decisions, but I must finance the project. You understand? But I cannot I cannot take any decisions. But when they want money, they will call me and say there's money, whatever. I need to pop out. But I'm reminded every time that I'm a woman. Now, working in that patriarchal spaces and working with traditional leaders, it's a space that you can never imagine. You know, you must just, but for you to be able to engage, you must behave like a woman. You must abide so that at least, so you must just, activism is not relevant everywhere because you might shut the door.
Cultural issues are there, yeah.
Like altogether. So you must sometimes so you must understand the culture and practices and just abide so that you open the door until it's wide open. Then you can tell them then that, hey guys, your story is not the story. So in government, I used to employ, I think you might know my male colleagues because they attended some of the ILC conferences.
Okay.
Every time when we go to sign contracts, people will say to my colleague, Mr. Mogale, because they know my surname, but they don't expect me to be a woman. Oh. Mr. Mogale, this is your contract. And they always remind them, no, Mogale is not a Mr., it's a Mrs. And this is the young lady you have to talk to. They look at me and frown. So you can see that, I mean, people in government, in positions of power, they still don't expect women to lead. And lead, you know, with clarity. So intimidation every time. You know that voice of men that intimidates you. Sit down. It's like that. Miss Mogale, sit down. So in government, it's always, and the way, I don't know, is my feminist tendency or the way it makes me so angry for a woman, for a man to reprimand me. in that voice, especially. It makes me go ballistic. So it's like, yeah, I get intimidated every time for being man. But I think as women, we must gather courage to be in those spaces. We have the right to be in those spaces. Yeah.
You have like in South Africa, a lot of movements supported by the church groups, and a lot of leadership emerged from the churches, like Bishop Desmond Tutu and others. How was the church attitude with the women's?
Richard Spoor. You mean Richard Spoor?
No, no, women's leadership, about women's
Hello?
leaders. Hello, I'm saying how is the
Who?
church? How is the church's attitude towards women in the movement, the leaders?
So you ask about Richard.
Not Richard,
Richard
church,
Spoor.
church. The Christian
Or
church.
the church.
The church.
Oh, the Christian church.
Yeah.
Oh, so the mainstream Christian churches, like the Roman Catholics, the Lutherans, the Anglican churches, the role of women, they're still patriarchal.
Okay.
A woman, it's a taboo to see a woman in the podium. But now they are transforming bit by bit. But still, it is 1 in a million woman who becomes a priest. It is still so much, very much patriarchal. I still have to interview a women priest in those churches and see and hear what their experiences are. So generally, even the indigenous churches are worse because why? They take their culture and practices from being black people who are abiding by customary practices and ethnicity. So ethnic groups, women are nothing. It doesn't matter whether it's Zulu, Tswana, women, it's somebody who must just prepare food and logistics. Nothing else, nothing more. So vocal women like us, we get stopped every time and being reminded that it's not your role to talk too much.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So, but you need to refuse. We need to stand our ground. So the churches are very much. So I go to churches. Well, it's an indigenous church. There is no the founder is a woman.
Okay. Oh, great.
The founder is a woman. The very same woman. They are telling us that she said she is not. She was not told to lead with women, to lead like for women to lead. So men are the bishops and the presiding and the whatever. Women are just there for choirs, choirs and choruses. That's it. So it is wrong, but I mean, how do you go there and start to, when your own grandmother will reprimand you that yes, this has been like that and it will always be like that. So if your own mother reprimands you, how will you change the system? So the church is an untouchable institution, really. It discriminates against women. It doesn't listen to women. Women don't address them.
So when you have such powerful churches among the black community, is there no political movement which we can say like the left movement in your country, the communists? Because in other part of Africa, we heard a lot about Che Guevara and Fidel Castro and making entries, being icons. So the Marxist movement, the communist movement did not attract the African people.
Yeah, so there are women who are starting to stand up. Like myself being an activist, I appear on TV every time. I write my articles every time they are being published. So, so it's also not an issue of being a woman only. It's an issue of class, to understand. Class, power, position, and privilege. Because by virtue of me working in the space that I work and I'm being recognized, the priest will always want to know and say, Uskon, do you have anything to tell us, to address us about? So I always address them about laws of parliament, if there's any bill, and encourage them to make their own submissions, to write in their own name as the church. So they always give me that recognition, but it is only by virtue of the position I occupy in the society. If I was just an ordinary person, they would never like listen to me. There are ordinary women who are doing amazing work, but they still don't get that recognition to share what they do because of that position and class and what they power. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just asking about the political ideology. Like in many countries, particularly the poor countries, a lot of people go to the non-believers ideologies. Not they feel that the religious
Exactly.
ideologies. So religious ideologies are actually harmful for women's rights. So is there any movement in your country which is like what you can call a Marxist movement or
Yes,
communist movement?
a lot of them, a lot of them.
Okay.
So I go to church because I used to go with my grandmother. She, and I have to do what they want me to do.
Yeah.
And my kids are challenging me every day. Oh, Mama, why do you have to go to church? Every time after church, oh, what was that guy saying? Oh, really? So a lot of movement, especially from the youth, but not also from the youth, from the indigenous doctors,
Okay.
from the traditional healers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of movement opposing Christianity, the
Oh.
ideology of Christianity, and coming with alternative. But we don't know. You see, in South Africa, it is a confused country when coming to custom, religion, and belief,
Okay.
because some of them are saying, you see, Mandela has opened the border gates and Satanism has come in, because you see sangomas. So there's also this hairstyle trending. You see this kind of hairstyle, they are not permitted in the church, because
Oh,
you have to wear, yeah, as a woman, you must always have something in your head,
you have to
and they
tie.
don't
You
want
have to
you.
tie. You have to tie here.
You have to tie. You see, like when people, or every time when people say they are wearing African attire, whether it's Xhosa or Sizulu, they will always have something in their head. You
Okay.
have to tie your head, or put your hair, like sew your
Scarf.
hair nicely like a woman. You
Oh.
can't let it loose like this. So there's a culture trending of African hair, original African hair, and understanding the herbs that makes your hair looks be manageable and look beautiful. And
Okay.
those herbs, they are doing it themselves. They are saying, we don't want to buy from these mainstream companies which sells us hair product that softens our hair and our hair falls off. My hair was never meant to be soft. It was meant to be,
Hi.
unless I'm interracial. I'm multiracial. Otherwise, the African hair trending. And now you see all those festivals, mass festivals of people who will want to dismantle the system of religion, and will also talk about ancestors and fortune tellers coming in numbers. You see people who are educated, graduated, having PhDs, going now back to their practice as a traditional sangoma, and then you don't know what is happening. So it is a very confusing era right now, and people without lack of a hostage where they go to this churches, pastors, and whatever, who also have their own agendas, and they are not
Yeah.
always correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is
No,
what
because I
happened
felt like many
in
countries have the
Christianity.
many countries felt it that the churches play a dirty role somewhere in Africa, and that's why there was a lot of
Yes.
the left movement emerged in these countries. The communist movement emerged in these countries. So that's what I was asking whether it happened in Africa or not. Anyway, that's okay.
I know it's. Mm.
Yeah. So now I come to the one or two main points about the points is Africa had a lot of Indian population, a number of Indian
Yes, a
population.
lot of them.
How do you
Mm.
see Indian people in Africa? How is their behavior in terms of mixing up with communities or in terms of uh, whatever? How do you describe Indians in Africa?
Yeah. So in Indian in South Africa is like any other ethnic group in South Africa. So as a black person, if I go to KwaZulu Natal and I don't know how to express myself in Zulu, they will immediately realize that I'm not a Zulu girl. and automatically I won't feel safe in their space.
Okay.
But also they will also see me as an intruder in their space. So if even in the Indian communities, it is like the same thing. I don't want to say nice things about Indians just because I'm talking to you.
No,
Indians
you can speak.
were some, yeah. So Indians are were you know, in the categories of the privileged. They were
Okay.
the second after white.
Mm-hmm.
So they always enjoyed those privileges of being exempted population,
Okay.
especially because they were the minority, but also they were not blacks. They were not
Okay.
from Africa. They are Indians.
Hmm.
So you find in Africa and in South Africa, um, Indian locations where you don't find any other person of any culture. Like
Okay.
where I stay right now is an Indian space. Yeah.
Oh.
My neighbors mostly are Indians. It's
Oh.
in Lenasia South. So the south of Johannesburg, that is where you find Indians. But that is
Okay.
where you find middle income Indians and poor Indians. But the Indians who can afford to buy in the northern suburbs, like any black person, they are there. So, but what I like about Indians, I like their culture. Even though I see that it's also dominated by religion and men are also dominant.
Yeah.
So I've got my financial accountant in the office is an Indian. So
Oh.
I always go to their house and
Hmm.
I observe and I get invited to their weddings and all those things. And I know I get to observe. You see a powerful woman who can accept herself in the office. You see a different person when you get to the house, a
Oh.
person who's always like running around people to please them. So I conclude that this culture and religion and the oppression of women cuts across all cultures. Yeah. But because of there are heroic Indians like Mahatma Gandhi,
Mm-hmm.
like now I want to talk about our now our period. There's Johnny Casserols, there's Uncle Kathy, Ahmad Kathrada. There's all those Busak people. So there's the role models of Indians who stood up for justice, and still now they getting their foundations for justice. You know, if you know Barbara Hogan, you know Barbara Hogan,
I'm
you
not.
know Barbara Hogan.
No.
So Barbara Hogan is a politician, a white politician who was married to Ahmed Kathrada, who was Indian.
Oh.
So
Oh.
they started their own foundation like that. So Barbara Hogan is a bridge for me to get funding
Oh.
because she is a very powerful. She was a minister in the times of Mandela, and she was also both herself and her husband, Uncle Kathy and Aunt Barbara. They were on in a space of organizing the Rivonia trial, whatever. They were there with Mandela during struggle. So they are people, powerful, profiled people who have access to resources. And even if they can't give you like money, but they are just they are stamped, their acknowledgement is power, is powerful, because if you produce that letter of whatever support from them, you can get any funding from anybody. So there are those Indian people who are doing very good work. So Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, for example, is in Lenasia South, and they help old people who are, like, you see people who want to send uh, mentally disabled people to some institutions and old people to old age homes, whatever. But they help you if you want to, like when I wanted to care for my grandmother in my house, they told me we provide you bed and a nurse and whatever. So they come and help you with the old person until she can rest in peace. You don't have to take it to the institution. You just have to give
Okay.
them a room in your house. They come and put it like a mini hospital, and they send you a nurse or somebody who can help you at their own cost. So there are Indians who are doing very good work. But if you find yourself in Durban driving at night, make sure you don't get into the way of those Indian thugs, because they see Durban as their territory. So there was a time I had a confrontation with one of them, and I knew that we were in a crowd, so he was not gonna defeat me. So he said, I must get out of the way. We are in the gate trying to hoot for the security men to take us out. Now he's telling me he's in a hurry, and he's after me. And I'm saying, and why do you think it's my business whether you are in a hurry or not? Why do you think I should fly and get out of your way? You think so? He said, yes, this guy is, you're intruding. In fact, you are intruding in Durban. I said, I'm intruding in Durban. You are mad. This is South Africa, a free country.
Yeah, so
So
this,
there are those ones, and I mean, I don't want to classify to that,
no, no,
because
that,
they are
that,
saying if
yeah,
you misbehave as an African person, people in another world will say Africans are like this. You
yeah.
understand? You brush, people must be conscious of the fact that you represent your identity, your family, your community, yourself. So once you misbehave or you behave nicely, it's either your community gets that glory and they say this person is from this village. But if you misbehave as well, people will say people from this village are not okay. Don't accept them in your community. So yeah.
So, how much has the Black Lives Movement in the United States and Europe affected the psyche or the mindset of the politics in Africa, in your country?
So Black Lives Matter is something that I knew 2 years back or so. And then there's this group also in California called Black Woman Disrupt. So I met all those guys through the fellowships that I did. But in South Africa, we know that Pan-African, the PAC, Pan-African Congress, they always advocated land for blacks. And that is why there was a dispute when they were launching the Freedom Charter, which said land belongs to all who lives in it. And the PAC was born because they disputed to say land doesn't belong to everyone who lives in it. Land belongs to black people. So in South Africa today, we've got people like Andile Mchitama. I think you know Andile because he used to be a prominent member of the ILC. He used to work for the National Land Committee. And you know Andile, yeah? Yeah,
I
so,
read
and
the
then
National Land Committee document, a fantastic document that was.
very
National Land.
fantastic document. Yeah. So Andile has done his own movement called Black Land First. And he's very adamant about the role of white people in the future of South Africa. And he hates white people with passion. And he even advocates for Zuma and the Eastern world. He likes your world, your Guptas and all those. And he says they were here in South Africa. The Western world and the Northern world, they were the ones who were looting. Now the East has arrived now. Now the East is also making their part. They also want to loot. So what is wrong with it? So he's so he makes his own self videos every night. We listen to him.
Oh.
Sometimes he annoys me. Sometimes I like him listening to him. So there are those movements that say that are black movement. The land access movement itself, in the constitution, we are saying we are not we are non-political, we are non-racial. No, we are non-political, but we are racial. We are biased towards black people.
Yes, yes,
We
yeah,
cannot deny the fact that the movement was born as a result of black people being dispossessed of their land.
yes, yeah,
And we cannot be smiling towards
yes, yes,
white people
yeah.
like that and think that they're going to give their land in a silver plate. Even though our lawyers are white people, though, because of the Legal Resource Center is an NGO that was initiated by the white liberals, the Lawyers for Human Rights, all these NGOs are white led. So what can you say?
So, okay, so there is obviously a question. It's good that the white people are also supporting, but of course, the leadership and other issues are also important that emerge from the Black community. So it cannot be a charitable thing. That's why I always speak about representation of people at every layer, not merely the political structure, but in judiciary, in media, in business, in education, in economy. Unless we have those presence in your country, it won't actually be a social justice or justice for all.
Yes, yes.
So I'm sorry, it is quite. I'm coming to certain points. One major point I always felt like in your country when you're talking about black and white the relationship, and you grew up in a family where your grandparents suffered, they lost their land. Did ever you get that kind of, you say that your friend hates the white, but the hatred doesn't take anybody anywhere. Do you have any
Yeah.
kind, do you have that kind of a thing? Because
I don't have that. I don't have any hatred against any white person. I'm sorry. Maybe it's a disappointment from an activist like me to say it, but I don't have any hatred against any
it
white
doesn't take
person.
you anywhere. It doesn't take anybody anywhere because they are good
It
people. There
doesn't
are,
take me anywhere. But the other thing is that I hear the story, I read about the stories, I never experienced the stories. Because in 1994, I just completed my matric. You understand? I have never worked for any white person who beat me in the head or did any abuse to me. But I was raised by a very courageous and charismatic women. I was raised by charismatic women who taught me to love myself, to never stay where I don't feel welcomed or
yes,
belong,
yes,
and to never. So my grandmother used to say, she used to say to me, I didn't want your mother and your uncle to go to Johannesburg. Your grandfather didn't want them to go there, but they wanted to go there because they see people from Johannesburg when they come with new suits and new perfume, and they making it, and they thought rural life is slavery, and they went to there. But I never wanted to say, and I told them, if you feel you cannot provide for yourself when you are in a foreign land, come home. I'm still here. I'm still alive. That's what my grandmother used to say to me. So there was a time when I worked for these terrible organizations, and I always cried when I talked to them. My grandmother told me, come home. He just disrupted me in my speech and say, I told you, come home. Never stay where you are not happy.
yes.
So I will never be around a white person who makes me feel inadequate. I will disrupt them. All the white people who work with me, they know me. There's a time when I feel like this thing doesn't come from my head, it comes from my stomach. And I just have to take it out. So you see, even Mike Taylor knows me. I had a confrontation with him. I told him, Mike Taylor, you told me you are from Botswana. Do you think I care about you from Botswana? Because you were not living with Botswana. You were a master and being served. So don't think when you see me, you see that domestic worker at your father's house. So you see, you must learn to learn to teach people how they treat you. You understand? You must learn to speak up. You must even shout if it's possible. Never feel like you are you are inferior. You understand? I know, I mean, in a hierarchical organization, you have to respect authority. If
Yeah,
you
no, no.
are reporting to a director
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
That
a
respect is
programs
fine.
person,
That
you
respect is
must
okay. Yeah,
respect them
yeah.
for that authority.
That's fine.
And you're not respecting them. By the way, that's what my grandmother, and that's why I always say my grandmother. My grandmother always taught me, hello,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
breaking down.
No, no, no. It's okay.
You breaking down.
No, no. I'm hearing you. Hello.
You're breaking down. I can't hear.
No, you speak. I'm listening.
Yeah, so you were breaking down, and I felt like I'm talking over.
No, no, it's okay. Continue. Your correction is getting, yeah, your
Yeah.
correction was getting disconnected actually.
Oh, yeah, it was disconnected. I could hear you are speaking and I'm speaking,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I
So,
stopped. Yeah, so that's why I'll always refer to my grandmother, because she used to tell me, Ma, don't work for money. Money must work for you.
yeah,
And work with people, respect them. And if you respect your authority, you're not really respecting that person,
yeah,
but
yes.
you respecting yourself, you respecting your work. So if you have committed that you will do this work plan, you know, come to the game and make sure that you deliver, because by doing that, you're respecting yourself, and people will know that when they work with you, you are a reliable person, you are consistent. But never allow anybody to misuse you or to exploit you.
No, good,
Yeah.
because at the ILC, I'm happy that I met you at the International Land Tourism, and it has provided a lot of spaces. And
Mm.
fortunately, even Mike and all other friends, even Madedu, different, they come from different background, but they have learned to, live with the movement and the variety of things. So that's a plus point of meeting
Mm.
of different diverse culture, diverse cultural values and movements. So
Yes.
my final point to you is, like, this is a great crisis, the pandemic and the COVID, as you say, that every crisis creates an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? What is the land agenda? Because there are a lot of people, as you said, people are ready to for charity. They want to give this, distribute this thing.
Mm.
How how do you think that is this land agenda, land distribution, food sovereignty, are these issues relevant in today's time, or should the government use it to, again rebuild a society, a better society, a democratic society, or do you think it
Mm.
is just not required and it's just not possible now?
Mm. So for me, and I want to speak from an I,
Yeah. Yes.
because people who are living in urban cities in the apartments will argue with me and say, what do I need 10 hectares for? What do I need livestock for? Why do I have to go and farm when I can buy in the supermarket store? Why do I have to own property when I can rent an apartment and enjoy different views by changing apartments like that? Um, so there are people that I had a conversation and engaged with them, and they will oppose my ideologies, and that's why I don't want to speak on behalf of people, but I want to speak on behalf of myself. So I think land and food sovereignty are most relevant today more than ever. Now, COVID-19 has shown that government is suffering and being punished and paying the price for not distributing the land. It is paying the price for not promoting food sovereignty and agroecology. Hmm? Ramaphosa is a man of his own house. You are the man of your own house.
Yeah.
My father is a man of their own house, and I'm also the man. In fact, as Connie, I'm also the man of my own house.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to feed who? Why do I have to get charitable house food from your table, leftovers from your table after you've ate with your family? Now you think of me. After we are full, now you think there's Connie there. You need to give Connie food. Who suppose why? Because if they gave us land, then we will be masters of our own kingdoms, and we will be. And they can ask us, "You said you want land. Now why do I have to send food parcels to you?" All right. If they gave people land, people will manufacture
Yes.
their
Hmm.
own sanitizers. There's
Absolutely.
alu that is being used. There's, when I was sick, my grandmother used to go into the garden, pick up some herbs. That's for me, and my cough is gone. Right now, they are promoting this mhlwanyane, this, I don't know what they call it in English, this plant. That is an indigenous plant. You can't plant it. It's an indigenous plant that you only find it where in the land,
Yes.
and that is That is what they use right now, promoting for Corona, and it's working. I've got it in my house. Somebody from Madibini, Pumalanga, brought it for me. You understand?
Yeah.
You can only get those things if you are having your own land. You can only be a master in your own property. You cannot, without a property, call yourself a master. You cannot expect to live in my house and lay rules in my house. It's my house, my rules. It's my land, my rules. And if they distributed land, and I'm not saying all the land, because there's land that you can see that is productive with the current owners, and we cannot disrupt. It's supplying not only the country but also probably other countries, and it is contributing to the economy if it is well taxed, of course, because that is another debate. There's this big campaign of Oxfam, which saying publish what to pay, because all these big companies also, they dodge tax. They're not contributing fairly to the GDP. But when we say we use the word equitable, we mean as per the need. You see, some people are teachers. Of course, they don't have time to go and farm because they are teachers.
It's basically
But
people who are working on the land. People who are working on the land.
Some of them are doctors working in the hospital. But all my uncles are teachers. And why they chose the profession? Because they are farmers. Because they know the school is like from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. After 2, she goes to the farmers, whatever. Before she goes to school, she takes livestock home. Like that, you understand? It was a dual, diverse livelihood system for them. You understand?
Yes.
So I think land is so much a relevant topic right now. And that is why, even though I want to contribute to the COVID relief systems and programs, I don't want to take my eye off the ball.
Yeah.
I don't take my eye off the ball. I'm here because I'm fighting for land. And that is why I'll always find an entry point to infiltrate the agenda of COVID-19. They must go back and talk about land. You understand? So I think you might have met Laurel Odette, who is facilitating the Landness Forum in the country. I'll send you those letters. We wrote to the minister after he announced the relief system and saying people can apply for grants. We wrote to him and say, congratulations, we like it that you're giving people grants, but you must make sure that you don't use all the budget, because you still need to buy land for people. We're waiting for our claims and we're not going back. Yes. So we said we want a meeting with you. If you can have a Zoom meeting of Parliament, you can have a Zoom meeting with the sector. You're not going to ignore us and make an excuse about COVID. Yeah. And she responded to us. And we had a big COVID meeting with the minister. Over 200 people subscribed for that meeting. Oh. One of my colleagues, Seppo, spoke on my behalf because I was burying my aunt at that time. That Friday when they had, it was the funeral of my aunt. So I've got a copy as well. I'll share with you where we had the minister and speaking as a civil society. I'll tell Laurel to share with you. So for me, we can go and take food parcels, but my agenda, I'm planning now for August, November, October, November. We must deliver food parcels with small seedlings. We must give every household seedlings of every kind of herbs and food. They must plant. We must give them a water tanker, where the water tanker can pour water there, and then they must have water for irrigation, because these are rural people without water sometimes. Some of them have, some of them don't have. We must give them, so I'm also planning a honey making project, a small honey making project for business, because we need honey for this COVID-19. People must swallow lemon and honey. So honey is in demand, and who is supplying honey? White big people with land. That's why land is possible. So I'm trying to get, I've been getting quotations. I've got quotations to purchase a small business making honey. So we are planning that August, November, people must plant, and then so government can have a relief of not sending parcels, but rather strengthen the health systems and make sure that hospitals are well equipped to protect the health workers and the people who are visiting the centers. You understand?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you very much, Connie, for your passionate advocacy of land reform and the social change. Because I too feel unless we have the redistribution of land and
Then we're not going
you
anywhere.
cannot democratize our system. And if democracy has to succeed, we have to truly democratize our natural resources. And that's where the success of democracy will lie. Otherwise, it will not be possible. So thank you very much, and more power to you. Give you more strength, and wish you all the best for your venture and your struggle. Our solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you. More power to you, Vidya. And you must know that you still owe me those photos from that visit. I like those photos. I love those photos. So my LAMOSA email was discontinued as I resigned.